Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, suddenly human. Yeah, you might be that way. Labor Day weekend coming up. You can finally feel human. Relax a little bit. Kick back with us. Kick back. Patreon.com/IBD. Great way to kick back. Kick back money to us to support the show, support the network, support It's All Been Done Radio Hour. Support all of us. Do it there. Another place you can become suddenly human. Even on the internet, you can do that. Facebook, follow us there. It's all been checked before. Come talk to us about Star Trek. Come talk to us about IBATB. And talk to us about Suddenly Human. And It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular hosts are here and Suddenly Human.
This is Steven.
And the aging Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. Yeah, Keith is aging because he's human now.
It's just suddenly.
Instead of
out of the blue.
Android he was, apparently. Or wooden puppet. I don't know. Marionette. First impressions of Suddenly Human.
It is hard to give a first impression simply because I'm going to summarize. I think I had a roller coaster on this one. I guess a good overview would be I messaged you guys earlier about how much I knew that Marion would have been annoyed by a lot of things that were happening, especially in the first half of that episode. You know, partially because she's a woman, I think, and also partially because of just certain annoyances, you know, the loud noises and just just things they're doing to kind of just grate at you. However, I think that the episode as a whole turned into something rather compelling, you know, and the the classic Star Trek style of those kinds of quandaries. So,
yeah, I think I went on the same journey that you described there. I think early on I was really annoyed. I thought the ending, the last, maybe 5 minutes or whatever, I thought really landed still, despite me being annoyed earlier. I definitely wouldn't say I loved it. Probably liked it, and mainly because I thought the end kind of brought it home. And I think you just said it. I don't know if I'd call it compelling. I wouldn't call it uninteresting though. But there's a lot to talk about. But I don't. So
I liked this episode. I agree with you that it started out annoying and not interesting, but the question it came down to, the core question at the heart of this episode, I found extremely compelling, and I do not have a good answer for the way it should end up. And that is part of why I like this episode, is it made me think about something I don't have an easy answer for.
Is it possible that you're like Crusher and we don't understand because we don't have kids?
It's possible.
That's it. That is it. You nailed it right there. We can't possibly understand because
we couldn't.
I mean, I don't think my thinking on this comes all that much from being a parent.
No, I don't. I just want to get an early dig in on Crusher and Troy.
Well, that's it's also kind of a dig at just the popular kind of glorification of things that we are taught, especially in this country, to dig into as far as parenthood being this. I don't want to get us too many letters written to us at this point.
Right.
But
Well, I mean,
you get where I'm going.
Yeah, there are certain things that are like, I mean, for one thing, childbirth, I will never be able to understand. I don't know how we continue as a species because women are amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's other things I think end up being a catch-all. Well, you wouldn't understand the Eagles' plight. What do you mean I wouldn't understand the Philadelphia Eagles because I don't have a kid? That doesn't make any sense.
That's why I don't understand the Eagles, because I do have kids. A kid. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I think that
I used to understand them. I lost them as soon as my daughter was born.
I always think the natural bird should have been turkeys instead. So yeah, something we should think about, like right now at the outset, comparing this against Charlie X. As far as it's hard to say whether this is better or worse than. And I mean, as far as annoying, no, all right. Jimmy
it's
already
not hard
told
to
us.
say which was the better episode.
You know what I'm getting at. You know what I'm saying? That was just like there's little things.
That episode was awful. One of my least favorite Star Trek episodes.
Objectively, you're correct. I'll say that. There are certain objective things you can put there, but I'm just saying that there are certain checkpoints that keep kind of coming up. But we'll get there.
Oh yeah, there are some parallels for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So We start out with this distress call, and they want to know if it's a rescue or a trap. That they have to go get this teller in. But when they, I guess
Also,
the only
That's how Charlie X started.
so they get there,
Yes.
and the away team that beams over is Worf, Riker, and 3 medical staff, no security. So I guess they've decided by the time they beam over that it's definitely a rescue mission and not a trap. And the only thing I can think of that was the deciding factor was Troy said, "Yeah, I sense there's distress." Is that why they didn't send 3 security officers?
Speaking of which, what is Troy or Marina Sirtis doing in that opening shot? She's
Oh my God, I wrote this down too.
Leaning.
she's behind the captain's seats.
Mhm.
She's in a weird position where her hips are thrust out.
Yes,
looks-
yes. It's the single leg in the shot that highlight that their legs are kind of spread in this way. And I put
Doing
down
stretches.
that it looked like she'd been forced to stand there because she was waiting for punishment.
Right.
No,
Yes.
It was a long shift on the bridge. She needed to stretch her muscles. She was using the railing to lean again.
That's actually a pretty good explanation, but it's just I never
would make
noticed things
sense.
like that before. But it was like the shot was just on her, and so I was like, wait,
And they
what's going?
went back to it a couple times, and I'm like, yeah, she's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the rest of it.
So they rescue these teen boys, the boy, and they beam him back, and they're all terrified, wailing in sick bay. And Picard comes in, he's like, "Stop it!" And they're not doing anything. And my first thought was he should clap like a classroom to get the attention, and he does clap, not like a classroom teacher.
Yeah.
He should have done the pattern, but I was like, he clapped. I appreciated it.
So it
So,
was just the 5 kids on the ship, right?
Yep.
So it sounds
Teenagers.
At first, you're like, oh, they're joyriding, but
No, it was a training mission.
yeah.
Okay, we went past something else I wanted to do during the cold open, and that before the stinger hit, there's something weird going on in the ship. No matter what, there's these kids here. What's going on? And they go, "Oh my God, there's a human here." And I go, "The boy's human? Uh-oh, now we really care."
Yeah.
That stinger opening
It's
theme.
like 250 people were killed in a bombing in Beirut. 3 Americans. It's like, oh,
What?
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now we have a
You
stake.
got me. Now
Yes,
I didn't-
exactly.
I didn't take it that way. I took
No, I
the,
didn't.
the human was surprising because they weren't expecting a human.
No, I know, but at the same time, it did feel like a little story writing thing that they throw into kind of it's
Show that
obviously
they were
raising the
Republicans.
stakes, but no, it's like they're having to throw in that thing. It felt obviously we know by the end of the episode that it's important to establish the story, but the way they pitched it at like that point, like this is the dramatic close to hit the theme. These are the stakes now. We have to care now because this is human. Also, that seemed like a great time for the explanation for the title. Suddenly, there's a human. So now
Yeah, the title didn't make a lot of sense to me.
I get it now because you made me think about it just now. Because suddenly this boy who thought he was this other race is human and has to deal with the idea of being human.
I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a stretch.
They mentioned,
Oh, it is, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were thinking.
They mentioned Stockholm syndrome, which is I guess that's great. Stockholm syndrome makes it from the 1970s all the way to the 24th century.
Yeah,
So-
thank
Makes
God
sense.
that didn't go away. That means there's a steady stream of kidnappings that were still happening.
Did they have to make the Tellarians so sexist?
And here we go. There it is, right? This
Did we need that element of
Jimmy-
their species?
Rigidly patriarchal is what they said.
But did that add to the story at all?
Not really.
The only benefit I see from that is they tried to force him off on Picard instead
Yes.
of Dr. Crusher and
Yeah.
Troy.
That is it, and that is that. Yeah, it's funny. Before I realized what they were doing or why, because first of all, my first note about what was going on in the sick bay was about the wailing, and it was like because I'm wearing headphones to watch this just at the computer because and I'm glad that I was because just that caught me completely off guard, and I was like, what the F is happening? Just oh my God, just beam them back. But actually beam them the F back to where they're at that point. To borrow a phrase from I think maybe Amanda and or Marianne used this phrase before, but it's just like apparently these boys only answer the penis phone because it was just everyone, And so they were hinting at it very strongly before they established why. But Picard walking in saying, "Hey, stop it!" Finally, it's like, "Oh yes, sir."
So, guys, if you don't want to be called misogynist, just say, "I happen to be rigidly patriarchal." It's a choice. It's a choice.
Oh my God.
It's not what I'm going to make. It's not what I'm going to make. Anyway.
Sick bay was extremely well staffed this episode.
Oh,
The boy goes to the ground and like 6 doctors are around him instantly.
Yeah.
It's that's an interesting point. I don't know if it's certainly because you would want an all hands on deck for this many people suddenly being put in there, but
I feel like that's the number of medical personnel that should be on duty most days.
Oh yeah, true. And it's always just Beverly because behind the scenes budget explanation, whatever. But I mean, think of how many times we have probably complained about there not being enough security in a room for things like that, and it's like, why wouldn't they have
Well,
no, I wasn't complaining about it. I was appreciating that it was finally well staffed.
Well, last week they had that dumb kid that they had to go to Starbase for. So, like, you know what? We can't go to Starbase every time one of these dumb kids. And we're on our 3rd straight week of dumb kids. Well, we didn't love
The
nephew, right?
Yeah.
Although I did love him at the end, though. He wants to be a captain. Yeah. So they probably were like, we can't go to Starbase, drop everything, go to Starbase every time we have a sick kid do something stupid. So that makes sense to me.
So we get to know Jono a little bit, and they're talking about his family. Apparently, he's got like a cursed family that everybody gets killed in action in his family.
Oh my God, just made me think of Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan. I don't know why in the current.
Never seen it.
Wait, the premise, the thing.
They have to go rescue a soldier named Ryan, I assume.
Right, but the reason why is because the cursed family, all of his siblings died during this war. So like, we have to do this for optics. This one person
I didn't know that.
Makes me think of Donnie Darko. Some people are just doomed.
So I was pretty sure when Picard went and talked to him, that Picard said no to him moving into his quarters. But then, like the next scene, he's living in Picard's quarters.
Was he?
Yes. He hung his hammock in Picard's quarters.
I didn't realize that's what had happened. I thought that he was. All right. So
I think, unless I saw that wrong, because why else would Picard care if he's blaring music? No, he definitely is in Picard's quarters because he goes and stabs Picard in his sleep. Later.
That was my Charlie X note at the end. I thought that he had like just walked into his quarters like Charlie did without a lock, and I thought that. No,
I'm pretty sure he hung the hammock in Picard's living room.
Oh my!
That makes sense.
This makes several things. They all right. That the jump cut joke didn't land on me at all. All right, so I had a couple things there. First of all, I said that Picard hates this episode as much as Marianne would. when they did that twist, like, you have to do this. Like, what? Me? Why? Also, I loved the delivery in that scene that you're referencing, where he said, I've always lived with my captain. Pause. Just Picard's reaction was just like,
He very conveniently left out the fact that his captain was his father.
Right. So
that would have been important information to know.
Right.
Yes, a couple things ran through my head right then, because first of all, you think, yes, this is funny, because we know that Picard doesn't like dealing with kids, but also it seemed like he might have been considering this being like sexual abuse or something, because that was my first thought.
Yeah.
Right. So
I'm like, what kind of adult is living with all these teenage boys?
This is another parallel to Charlie X, in that they're like, well, Kirk, you should form a relationship with him. I just thought it was so much work. It doesn't make sense to me on a starship of 1,000 people that Picard should be the one. Like,
yeah,
you know what? You have nothing else to do. Why don't you help us out with this dumb kid we just picked up? I'm like, I mean, if it's like, oh, he likes you because you have a commanding style, or you're the captain or whatever. Riker's more over the top than anybody.
Riker or Worf, if you're going to force somebody to do that, Worf would have been like.
But the kids' stories go to Picard. But you're right, Riker would have been more logical.
Yeah,
and we know Riker has custody of all the kids that don't have parents on the ship.
So that put me out right away, and I shouldn't say right away, but that part really bothered me because we talked a lot about when the false constructs or making a character do something that he wouldn't regularly do. I think the story gets better, and I think the actors and the story come together eventually. But I still think starting from this really false construct just wasn't a good base for me. So,
for lack of a better word, better term, it's like the buddy cop construct of like, we're going to maneuver it. So you two opposite things have to do this thing and, work together and,
I think once we introduce his stepdad, I think things get more interesting then. And I think we get into those conversations about, I thought of Elian Gonzalez, for lack of a better term, but I just, who's what's family and who's your real dad and what's best. Because the first thing I wrote, the other note right next to that one was, why not just send this kid back? Why is it so important to get this kid? This goes back to the human thing. Why is it so important for him to, especially when Worf's right there, who did pretty good being raised by humans? Why wouldn't this human be raised well by Talarians? He seems to be doing okay.
So that's the main thought at the middle of this episode that I really liked exploring, because I agree. My first instinct was you should give him back. By bringing in the grandmother, though, I feel like that adds a different element to it, even though it was such a small part. Yeah. Because if your grandkid was alive and you had lost your child and you knew this grandkid was alive, of course you'd have the custody rights to get them back. If somebody raided your house, like robbed your house and murdered your family, but took the kid with them and raised them, no court of law would would let that murderer keep the kid. But then you also have to think about the parallels of a prisoner of war, which is a different dynamic than somebody breaking into your house and murdering your family. But in the prisoner of war story, usually the kid is a political pawn, and they didn't bring politics into this at all, which I appreciated. So instead, you've got a prisoner of war dynamic, but with the personal story of like murdered family. So it was hard to pin down. And I really thought...
And also being alien custom.
Right. And so I really thought whichever way they ended, whether he went with his adopted father or whether he went with his grandmother, the other one should definitely like stay in contact with him. Like, I feel like he needs to have both of his families. He's 14. Yeah, let him finish out a couple of years with the Talarians, but he should also visit his grandma, and his grandma should be talking to him on subspace. Or the adoptive father should welcome the grandmother for a visit. Like, I feel like there's, because both parties cared about his well-being, and because the adopted father wasn't this evil marauder, he was like this caring father. I feel like there should have been some type of middle compromise, but I don't see, especially as close as he was to adulthood, a clear answer on which is morally right, whether he should go back with the Talarians or go with his grandmother.
Well, Jimmy, this will be the legal part of the episode. I'm ready to elect you a domestic relations judge for Franklin County, because the standard, and it's a super wishy-washy standard, but it's in domestic relations courts, it's always best interest of the child, and that's a hard thing to define, and for a judge. And so I do not envy them making those decisions, especially based on the information they're making on all that stuff. But I think what you're saying is exactly right. That's exactly what should happen here, and that's what I do love, is that that Picard comes around and is like, yeah, well, what are we doing here? This makes sense. That does make sense. It is in the best interest of the child.
But is it? I think the grandmother is a strong argument that we didn't get in the story. Of the best interest being that he goes home. And this is where I was really torn, and I don't feel like I have a good answer coming out of this episode, which is part of why I liked it.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, both of you bringing some good things here. So,
Ethan, this where you say you do have a kid.
You do have a kid.
This is the twist.
I do indeed have a kid, and if somebody murders her and takes her child, I'm getting the child back. I'm just gonna say that.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. Either way, it would be.
Oh, something happens to Zoe, we're vigilanting this thing.
Right.
I mean, Zoe's 3 right now, so if she had a kid, we'd have a whole different.
Oh, that's a different thing. You're right. If you're the grandfather, that's a different thing.
That's a different thing.
I won't be alive for that.
But if I was murdered, I think my mom and dad would fight like heck to get Zoe. So,
well, that does seem more realistic at this point. I mean, we're more a closer parallel. But don't want to go down that road. All right, so
it's realistic that I'm murdered and Zoe is kidnapped. Okay.
Yes. So introducing the surrogate father, or the adopted father, essentially, that was kind of a game-changing thing for me as far as the way that played out. I'm watching this kind of going through the motions, because this is the sort of thing you see all the time, or at least you feel like you're making the same assumptions that the characters are on the starship at this point. And when you actually get to see Picard talk to this man, it suddenly it twists this whole feeling of, we're assuming that there's this abuse and this other thing. And they played it just right. They did like the Law and Order thing where you hear this, you hear the person's testimony or their interrogation. You go, wait a minute. Wait, I believe this person. They're doing this in a way where I believe that they're telling the truth. This suddenly became more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a big part of that, because even when the father beamed over, I was still a little bit on the fence on, is he sincere? Is he the secret abuser? Even though I thought he was sincere at that point. But the fact that the first thing he asked the boy he says to the boy is, you're of age, you decide. Do you want to come back with me or not? That sold it right there. Yeah. I'm like, okay. His explanations for the injuries made sense too, but it was seeing him interact with the son that you're immediately like, okay, yeah, no, this is loving relationship. Mm-hmm.
So the other thing, the resolution, and again, what Jimmy said makes perfect sense. And it would have been nice to see something like that. But on the other hand, I guess almost to this episode's credit, thinking back now, they didn't make it too neat. It should have been neat like that. It should have been like, we're going to have this kind of shared, or for the audience's benefit to say, we're definitely going to have this shared communication, but they didn't make it that easy. There were these back and forth things happening. You see this boy being convinced, or you think he's being convinced, and then he's so broken that he tries to kill Picard, or at least attack him, maybe for the purpose of taking the decision out of his, something like that. All right, that's a separate part of the discussion. The point is, they didn't make it easy, and they probably should have by most conventional writing. You
want to talk about the writers? This feels like a good place to mention the writers.
I guess so. Right.
The episode story by is Ralph Phillips, and this is his only Star Trek credit. It was actually written by John Welpley and Jerry Taylor. Jerry Taylor had come on this season as a supervising producer on Next Gen, but you may have heard her name before because she eventually became the showrunner of Next Gen and co-created and showran Voyager in its early days. So she's a big Star Trek name from this era as well. The co-writer with her, John Welpley, much less well known. His Star Trek credits are few. This is his only TNG credit, says story by, and he does have a story by teleplay by DS9 episode, but that's it for him. But yeah, this was Jerry Taylor's first big entry into Trek. And she is very concerned with relationships, and she has been widely credited for the development of Janeway as a character. So I can see some of the influences of how she treats personalities and backstories and stuff here. She even wrote a Janeway novel of Janeway's backstory that is about as close as you get to a Star Trek novel being considered canon.
That frames the misogyny and the whole, what was the term we used for the patriarchy in this? The
rigidly patriarchal.
Yes. It's I don't know.
This episode was directed by a woman too, Gabrielle Beaumont. So they definitely had some female handling of what seemed on its surface like a rigidly male. We mentioned Gabrielle before because this is the third time she's directed. Yeah, that's why I came away liking this story so much, I think. I mean, I still have plenty of other notes of things as they go along, but yeah, I'm torn on the custody and the issues it raises, and they could easily set this story without the Trek trappings around it, and it would hold up very well. Yeah, it's not a sci-fi story; it's a personal story.
Yeah, and I to go back to I made it as a joke or whatever. You're not a parent, you wouldn't understand, but I think that's another part that's compelling about when the Talarian comes over, because like you said, we're all thinking, well, that sounds like abuse, and obviously it didn't start off well with them, but and that could be an excuse for abuse, which is, well, you don't understand. You're not a Talarian. You're not a Talarian parent or whatever. That's how we handle things or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then he explains, oh, no, this is what happened. And it does make sense.
Troy asked Picard if he had any childhood friends, and they have this whole discussion about how Picard's whole youth was focused on Starfleet. I felt like they hinted at that in the episode Family, but I don't feel like they took it to this extreme. So it felt like it didn't quite gel up with what we learned about him in Family.
Yeah. He liked to sit under trees and stare up at the stars.
But he also had that buddy. that was
Oh, you're
offering him the
right.
job.
You're right. Yeah.
And Robert didn't say that was the only thing. I don't know.
And Gabrielle, doesn't she count as a friend?
Yeah, sure. I enjoyed the quote. I think it was Crusher. Almost no one is born a good parent. You have to muddle through and do the best. I think that's pretty true.
Well, I mean, in the sense that everyone, I mean, just you can say about really any practice or just.
There are some people that are naturally talented.
I wasn't good at anything when I was born.
Really? I was excellent at many things when I was born.
I heard I was good at eating, is what I'm told.
No, seriously, Jimmy, that is a good point. I mean, some things or some natural abilities do translate well into certain activities, but it's hard to say that for something that procedural, it is hard to say that you would be good at it naturally.
And some parents are a lot better than other parents. So, anything else.
That's for sure.
I think parenting is one of those things which is kind of odd because most things, if you're skilled at it or not, like the people that are really skilled at it make a career out of it, and those that are less skilled kind of fall away. But with parents, man, everybody you just all have to go for it.
Essentially, when you become a parent, you've more or less made a career of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, the good parents are like, I'm committed to this.
Well, yeah. For as far as that goes,
unlike Jono's parents who abandoned
just died. Yeah. How dare they?
Come on, be better.
Be best.
That is, oh my God.
In the words of our hero, be best.
That is a great parallel, of course, to last week's episode when I said that the kid was whining about his impending death too much.
Well, I thought you were going to parallel Charlie X, where his parents do show up at the end.
Wait, do they?
Yeah.
My God! Now I
his step parents show up, or whatever the beings that gave him.
I was like, were there the godlike beings that actually took custody? All right. Yes. Yeah. All right.
So.
I wrote down, I think you already mentioned this, Stephen, that how is this much different than Worf? Worf was basically, the humans didn't kill the Klingons at Kittimer,
right?
But he did die from a military attack and was adopted by, I guess the difference is Worf was adopted by allies, not by the enemy.
Oh, that's true.
If the Romulans had picked him up and adopted him, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
Well, and also, were there like parents or grandparents waiting for him to say?
Now, see, I wrote this. This is so they thought that his parents were dead and there was nobody to send him back to. But then we learned there was that nursemaid. So why didn't they send him back to her? I don't know. And then the secret brother. But the family friends that took care of the brother, why didn't he go with them? I don't know. I wrote my next note I wrote down, and this was when Jono was blaring the music. Kids and their rock music. But seriously,
I really liked that music. Actually, I was like,
yeah, I did too.
Damn.
But seriously, though, I get if Picard's trying to sleep, not letting him blare the music. Yeah. But if Picard's not in the quarters, why does he care if the boy's wailing or playing music? Right. He forbid both of those things. That seemed unnecessarily strict to me.
That lends itself to the theory that that's his quarters, which I misunderstood. And also I think it was like an oversimplification or maybe a rash way of phrasing it on his part to say, don't do it again.
Yeah. Well, I think it really hit home too that he made a mistake, to me anyway, when Jono says, you're taking away all the ways I have of coping with this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. I think it's Picard did not know how to parent or deal with kids, but you needed to give him those outlets. Yeah. And if you didn't want him doing it in your quarters, set him up in the holodeck, let him have a couple hours to work it out. He could go running he was complaining about not being able to run by the stream. I'm like, take him to the holodeck, let him run by the stream.
I thought that was going to do too. And it was so weird that they did that. I mean, it worked, but it worked. Sorry, Stephen, we interrupted you like 5 times now.
All the Talarians can do is they have the old Viewmaster. They don't have a holodeck. How soundproof do you think the rooms are?
Seemed very, because Picard didn't seem to hear the music till he opened the doors and walked in.
Yeah, so if you're right next door, you can hear it. So yeah, he shouldn't care.
Although, should we be worried about Picard's quarters being soundproof? Does that lend something out, some other type of?
Well, yeah, that was my question: is are everyone's, which makes the open door policy even a worse idea if you can't hear through.
I think
the door.
Worf should definitely be, and Riker's, and. For 2 totally different reasons, but they both should have soundproof quarters
and Crushers.
Well,
that's my own fan fiction.
No, so she lives with Wesley, so it's
no, that's true. That's true.
Probably not anymore.
I would imagine. That's nothing. That's something I've never really thought about. Like what would their living arrangements be, and how long ago would they have changed? You're making me think again about the whole and don't start that music ever again thing. It just it seems odd that he wouldn't specify. I'd like you not to do that while I am here or while I am trying to sleep, but do whatever you want when I'm not. That seems like a really sloppy way to phrase that.
And he's knocking his music, but this is where we get into fashion. What are they wearing? I don't understand these kids these days in the 24th century. What is he wearing? It's some kind of weird half shirt kind of coat. I don't even know. I didn't like any of this.
The gloves, because they were Michael Jackson fans, the music finally reached them through space.
Actually, for the gloves, I kept thinking of Rogue. That would seem like a X-Men, Steven.
I thought you meant he was roguish, like
like outrageous, like outrageous.
Yeah.
I thought when you started into fashion, I assumed you were going to talk about the Picard and Jono playing racquetball in those outfits.
Oh yeah, that was. I feel like that was not the rage, but it was the thing around that time. The neon and all that.
Was the ball that they were hitting totally just special effects?
Oh, that's a good question.
It looked like it to me.
Yeah.
It looked like they were just swinging paddles and they filled in the ball later.
Are people, I mean, there was a B99 episode around this sport, but are people still playing squash?
I don't know.
I don't either. Maybe.
I think I played it once in college and that's it.
Oh, you mean like right now, literally in real life?
In 2021.
Yes. Huh.
I mean, probably not 8:00 at night, but
right.
You know.
Oh, maybe with masks. Are you talking about because of that or because of just falling out of fashion?
Just in general, it's squash. I don't know anyone that plays squash other than there's a B99 episode about Holt and.
It comes back in the 24th century. It has a brief.
That's what it is.
It was a brief fad.
I only played it on the Radio Shack Tandy game of squash.
What was that squash that they were playing?
Racquetball.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Or racquetball. Yeah. I guess
there aren't usually targets like that for anything that I know of.
Right. It's a variation. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I think he called it racquetball though.
Yeah. The blue banana split with the tube-like bananas looked interesting to me.
Oh my God. All right.
Very futuristic version of the banana split. I was kind of glad they didn't just make a banana split like we would eat.
That's a good point.
Did you see the bananas? They were like straws. They were like big, thick straws. Well, you had to notice the ice cream was blue when it fell out.
Yeah, well, certainly that. Yeah. But I mean, it didn't have to be vanilla necessarily or chocolate, right?
The reason the ice cream was blue, though, is because they got the milk on Tatooine that they made the...
No.
I did agree with Data, at least in this instance, that
yes,
the pie in the face is not funny.
Yeah.
But then I thought there are times where I will laugh at a pie in the face, but in this instance, he was correct.
It felt funny. Forced laughter.
Yes.
Yes. I was like, but Data, I also failed to see the humor in what is happening here. And their explanations didn't help. Even slapstick was like, yeah, still don't get it. Loved it.
Yeah.
And Picard sure easily slid Jono off on Wesley and just walked away. Wesley was clearly told to go sit there, have your man split ready. We're going to leave this kid with you, because Wesley was all for it and going with it. And he's like, get another banana split for my friend here and everything. Like, he was in on it. Picard sleeps in the most uncomfortable position. Did you notice? Yeah. His neck has to kill him in the morning.
But that's what they train you to do in Starfleet.
No, you can't sleep with your neck like all the way up.
This will not surprise you, but Kirk would have never got stabbed.
Are you saying he would have done one of these, like, or on the blade?
He'd have woke up. He is a light sleeper. And mainly it's because if the lady with him wants to go for another round, he wants to be ready to go at a moment's notice. So he was always ready.
My first thought when that stabbing happened was, is this a dream sequence? So I love that Picard's first words when he woke up was, so it wasn't a dream.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
It felt filmed like a dream sequence.
So they said his sternum bennett, which I guess makes sense. Solid bone.
Deflected the blade, yeah.
But does that mean the kid was a bad aim? Maybe Talarian's hearts are somewhere
I was going to say, yeah.
Could be that, or he's just lashing out of emotion. It was a cry for help kind of attempt.
I don't think he wanted to kill Picard.
Yeah.
I think, like he said,
yeah, that makes sense.
I think he was expecting to be executed, and basically that would solve the issue he was having.
He could have just punched him then, right?
I don't think punching would have gotten him executed. But he seems very certain that Picard's going to execute him for that. Where did Jono get the dagger, though? Surely he didn't bring it with him, because if they did, they wouldn't have let him keep it.
Wait, the Klingon weapon on the counter. That's what.
It was Picard's weapon?
Yeah, he said, "Don't touch that. Don't pick that up." That was their.
Okay.
God, it was like a Chekhov's dagger.
Chekhov's dagger. Nice.
Yeah.
Wait, Chekhov was in this episode?
Yes. He was turned into a dagger, obviously.
Okay.
It was a dagger of the mind.
The
final scene when Jono says goodbye to Picard, and he takes off his glove and he touches his head like a father. I was still touched by it.
I was too. I thought that was one. It was like, and I thought that's what made the Talarian thing really good too. I like those last two scenes. I thought
I missed thinking about the gloves, but that is better. Yeah.
The touching the heads, but also Picard coming up and being like, "Hey, guess what, guys? I kind of had an epiphany. This is what's happening." And it was like it was unexpected. And it was great, and So I love those last two scenes.
The adoptive father's reaction really sold that for me too.
Yeah,
just that.
Yeah.
Oh my, this. Yeah.
So we have a few guest stars we haven't talked about yet. Admiral, the grandmother, was played by
Admiral
was played by Barbara Townsend, who's best known for Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal, Remington Steele, and Aftermash, where she played Mildred Potter. The MASH.
Oh, wow. Well. All right.
The Jono was played by Chad Allen, best known for a run on Dr. Quid, Medicine Woman, and voicing Charlie Brown in Happy New Year, Charlie Brown.
And what I remember him best as, and I didn't realize it till I got on Wikipedia, because I'm like, I know this kid. I remember watching him act. He is the kid at the end of St. Elsewhere.
Tommy Westpholl.
Yeah, who has the snow globe in which the entire show took place inside his mind. Spoiler alert for anyone who's going to go back and watch St. Elsewhere.
What? And so that's why like 300 different television shows are part of the Tommy Westpholl universe.
Yes.
Including all of Trek.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, all of Star Trek's part of the Tommy Westpholl universe. I'm not kidding. So, of course, in his own dream, he's going to dream himself on the Enterprise. That makes sense.
Total sense. Yeah,
and of course, dreaming Picard's dream about being stabbed, and
and then the adoptive father was played by Sherman Howard, who's best known for The Stand, the old version of The Stand, Day of the Dead, Lethal Weapon 2, and Seinfeld.
Here we go. Yeah. So I knew I recognized him, and I was like, the whole time I'm like, oh, he's the intervention episode. Nope. He is the Junior Mint episode. He is the guy being operated on in the Junior Mint episode.
Oh my God.
They're chocolate. They're refreshing. So he's the guy who so Elaine makes fun of him or breaks up with him at some point for being overweight. He goes to get, I think, surgery or liposurgery or no, there's just something in there. And then the Junior Mint goes in there and all that stuff. The other Trek connection, jumping off of that, episode 5 of The Orville, playing in the background, is the Junior Mint episode of Seinfeld.
That's awesome.
So I found that out. Also, the other thing, even before I got to that, I thought when the kids I can't remember if it's the Jono or the captain who's like, "You're a man now." It reminded me of the Seinfeld episode where the kid has his bar mitzvah. He's like, "I'm a man now. I renounce Judaism," and everyone's putting the moves on.
No, something else.
Elaine. So I wrote, the Talarian bar mitzvah is great.
So he also will guest star in an episode of Voyager as a different character.
Oh yeah.
So he's got one other Trek credit coming up. What I think is funny is right around this time he was playing Lex Luthor on the television show Superboy.
Oh yeah.
What the? Wow.
And Leland did his voice to a Star Trek Armada video game as well. Yeah, lots of credits. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, I did too. I thought the emotion that he brought to it, initially, and I wrote, Talarians are jerks, but then, I love that they made them more complex. I mean, I still don't feel like we understand Talarians by any means, and we probably won't see them again, but again, I like that development too. I like the Talarian ship also.
It could have been really easy to play them like Klingons or something like that.
Exactly.
But it wasn't. And like right out of the gate, you're wait, what, they're not doing that? Then what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And
If you were going to play them like Klingons, they should have just been Klingons. So it's good that they weren't just Klingons.
Right.
I do see there was a mention of Talarian. I'm looking on Memory Alpha. There's a mention of Talarians in a DS9 episode, but I don't see any other episode listed where they're actually in it.
That's too bad. But only so many episodes to go around. The pictures of Jono with his human parents, his parents, his birth parents, look like, and this will again show how old we are, or how old I am. It looks like future Olin Mills. In the future, Olin Mills will make a comeback because those pictures look very cheesy and everything. Picard, when he says sterile, he says
sterile.
Sterile. I'm like, what is he? What do you say? Oh, sterile. I don't know if I figured it out, but sterile. It was just bizarre. But I also
those wacky
like
British. What are they going to do
I
next?
like negotiations and all that stuff he does. So, yeah, that's all the notes I had.
I have 1.5 notes left.
Ooh, let's hear them.
Can't wait for this half note.
Yeah, so one was a reference back to the whole thing about parents and not being able to that's a decision. Once you're in, essentially. You can't just back out of that. So, well, you can, but that's what brings me to the note, which is one of my favorite Rush quotes ever, of course, which is, you can choose not to decide, but you still have made a choice.
I thought you were going to go with parents don't understand.
Well, I don't. It doesn't quite relate here. It's like everyone else who's not a parent doesn't understand.
Right.
Non-parents don't understand.
Oh, I want to hear this half note. I hope you're singing.
Oh, it relates to things we've been kind of talking about throughout, or certainly something that I mentioned at the beginning, and I've kind of changed my mind on it a bit, but I thought it was going to be difficult for me to separate out the quality of this episode from being annoyed by certain aspects at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But I think we kind of, I know, I feel like I've moved past that now, just like through talking about it, but
Gotcha.
Alternate episodes.
Okay, I'm going to get dark for a second straight week. This week is less than a dark alternative episode. It's less of an alternate episode and more of an alternate ending. Instead of the kind of happy ending we have in mine, he goes back to the other ship and they kill him because he's been infected, essentially, because he, It turns out the Talarians were abusers and they kill him.
Wow.
Or he stays on the Enterprise and he kills himself because he'd rather do that than be stuck with these people, which he kind of was going for the execution. But so those are my dark endings, not a totally alternate episode. I don't know where my head is. Sorry, everybody. I got these last couple of weeks got a little dark.
Yeah. I don't have an alternate episode here because I feel like this left me with enough alternates of just the way this played out. So I'm going to go with that. Ranking the episode. Annoyance, Wesley, scale of 1 to 10.
I was going to say I'm around a 2, but it's not his fault. And I hate when you have to make those kinds of distinctions, but it's just like that scene was just so stilted. It's just, can I do a 1.5? Because I mean, it didn't really feel like. All right, you're not using the calculator on that. I always assumed you're like a formula up for it, but
no, I'm old school.
No, I'll do a 1. I mean, he was fine. It's just.
Yeah, I'm with you, Keith. I'm gonna do a 1. I think there were annoying things happening around them, but I don't think any of them were his fault.
I think I'm becoming, and maybe this is because I'm not a parent, I'm becoming less tolerant of Wesley Crusher this season for some reason. I still think he's great. I don't get the fan hate at all, but I'm giving him a 3 just for the banana split scene. It just,
Okay.
No, I will say that I get the fan hate in the sense of just simply seeing the way that people in general are, especially on the internet, especially now, especially about anything that comes out. There's just a dogpile mentality that happens, and it's never stopped from then. And
who is your annoyance of the week?
I have a couple, but I think I'm going to land on. I'm going to be rigidly patriarchal and go with Troy and Crusher.
What?
Can I pick both of them?
I guess.
I didn't like them for the way they forced Picard into being the dad. My other option was Jono, who just dumb kids, but that's so I'm going with them.
It's not his fault, but I'm going with Jono. I mean, I can't. It's just it was. I don't know. Maybe even one of the other kids. The wailing. The what do they call that? The morning. What was? Did they have it?
The morning wail. Yeah, they had some name for it, but I don't remember what it was.
Man.
So I'm really tempted to go with Riker because he wasn't doing his job and taking care of a kid again. But but I think I'm gonna have to go with Picard. I know. Again, I'll say it wasn't his fault, but I'm going with him because some of the things he did were just so awful and dumb. Like let the kid go running on the holodeck. Don't take him to play racquetball. He's telling you what he needs. Listen to him.
Yeah.
Crush of Star Trek. Jono is underage, so don't even.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh boy. Yeah, I will stick with Marie, aka Samantha Egger.
Keith,
well, I guess I'm sticking with Lore then.
I'm gonna go in a non-sexual way, a platonic way, if you will, with the father. I really dug him. Captain Endar. I really dug him this week. So I'm going with Endar. I feel like while he is tough, he's also caring, and that's the father. A lot of us, he reminds me a little bit of my own father, but not too strongly.
I will say, just from reading his Wikipedia page, the actor, it's like, I'd like to hang out with this guy. And
Seems
just
like
he came across so convincing. I mean, he's obviously a good actor, but yeah.
Seems like it.
Enough that he would make you want to drink beer instead of vodka.
Let's not go crazy.
No, so he does not pass the want to have a beer with him test then. Oh well.
Nobody passes that test with me. Well, wait, hold on.
Ranking the episode, does this go above or below Brothers?
Oh God, I was all set to do my joke too. I loved it. It's 4 or whatever. I came around on it last place, but it just I can't. I don't know.
I think I go 4. I think.
Yeah. Same. I mean, I do appreciate that it is better than I was letting myself feel at the time, but I wouldn't want to put it above Brothers. Here's
the thing, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion. I think it's better than Brothers. I'm not saying it deserves to be ranked above Brothers.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No,
is this because Keith and I aren't parents? Is that what? And we don't understand?
Well, parents don't understand and non-parents don't understand. So who does understand?
We got everyone covered.
Nobody understands.
Only the kids.
No.
Only the kids. That's my favorite thing from the 80s, the condescending kids know best or kids blah.
Yeah.
It's just rare that an episode leaves me with a conundrum that I can't find what side I really want to come down on. And the custody battle really left me thinking it through. So that's where I think it's a better constructed episode than Brothers as well. I think it has fewer weaknesses than Brothers, but Brothers has 3 Brent Spiners and they're fun and I can't stand in the way of that. So while I think it's a better episode, I certainly understand why it's ranked below Brothers.
That is very well put. And I agree for the most part. There's something, I don't know.
I know.
There's a good quandary there.
Yeah, I'm not going to fight you on it. Next week, Remember Me. Dr. Crusher's
How could I forget?
Remember Me next week when we're talking about this.
There we go.
Dr. Crusher's fear of losing loved ones becomes real when her worries create an alternate reality.
That's intriguing.
Does that mean we get 2 Picards?
That's
we can only
intriguing.
Hope.
I don't really think we get 2 Picards. It was just... But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It's a good. There's a returning guest star that you may recognize. Yeah. Returning guest character in the episode. The Traveler is back, so
okay.
We'll see that soon. Until then, live long.
Even if you're not a parent, and prosper.
You'll live longer probably if you're not a parent. It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?
I had something I need to save it. Yeah. I need to save it for next week, obviously.